Ted, so great to have you here. I feel like saying it's King Arthur because he's the head of the Roundtable. But Ted, great to have you with us today.
Great, Dan. Great to be here. Great to see you. And
You too.
congratulations on all the success that you and Automotive News are having as well.
I appreciate that. I'm going to turn the tables on you a little bit. You are usually the one asking questions, so I get to ask a few questions of you. And I know you've told this story before, and I've heard it, but it's been a while. Tell me how you've been in the service business a long time, as a as a service manager, as a consultant, a trainer. How did the idea for this kind of the fixed ops roundtable begin?
Good question. I've been in retail 42 years ago. I started, all right, as a
Wow.
salesperson in Fetty Ford, New Jersey. And I started off on the front end of the dealership. 4 years ago, I decided, since I've had a training company now for over 30 years, that I would do a little get together. And I decided to do it on fixed operations, Dan, and bring together some good minds from retail. And actually, I had thought about it for a couple of years, and I procrastinated it on doing it. I have an office in Manhattan. And I have a boardroom, and I wasn't using the boardroom. And some people said, that's a nice room, with a nice view. Why don't you bring some people in there and have a meeting there? And I said, well, I'm thinking of doing it on fixed ops, but I don't know if anybody will show up. So finally, in 2019, I said, it was like a week before Memorial Day. I said, let's have a fixed operations roundtable. And I invited some people to come, and that was how it started.
From those humble beginnings. Now we're 2, 3, 4 days of full days of content now. You have the next one coming up in May, which is going to be 4 days worth.
May 15th through the 18th. Yes, Dan, 4 days. Fixed Ops Roundtable number 20, our 20th event. It'll be about the 4-year anniversary, and they all have themes now. This one is back to the 80s. So we're having fun with the themes. It keeps it fresh and relevant. And, we also want to attract into fixed ops, a younger audience. We want to attract a lot of people from retail, not just men, but women as well. And, those are all important topics.
Who comes up with these themes now? Because they seem very fun. I don't know if it's you have a little committee, or people recommend them. How do you come up with these different themes?
It's not me. If it was up to me, I think I saw you at the one in Las Vegas, and that was event number 4. And so if it was up to me, this would be number 5, 6, 7, 8. That was my idea of a theme. But Michelle McLean is our branding expert, if you will, our branding guru. And we went to Vegas. She said, let's call that one. This was in February of 2020. Right before the world changed. And she said, let's call that Viva Las Vegas. And I said, that's such a silly theme. I don't think anybody will buy that. And she said, let's go with it. And that was the first one. And then, slowly we went to the virtual format. Not long after that, our next one was called the virtual event. We thought there was only going to be one, Dan, in April of 2020.
Right. Here we are.
And
you told me how long will it take you? So you have 4 days of content that they'll have. How many weeks does it take for you to tape, record, or film all those interviews?
It takes 18 weeks to put on a 4-day fixed ops roundtable, and that's simply because there's a lot of moving parts. Right? We have a lot of speakers. We have to get them to agree to speak, get a topic. We have about 40 panels, at the event. That'll be the most we've ever had. And we were doing 3 days all last year, and we were maxed out on the 3 days. And I was ending up like, I hope we could fit it all in. And like, there would end up being like an extra half day of content. So I felt we were ready in January. And we did, during the Wild West event, we did our first 4-day event, and it was a big success. So now we're going to keep it at 4 days. We did an event last fall. We called it the Roaring 20s, and I never would have thought that it would have the popularity it did. That was probably the biggest event, one of the biggest events we've ever done. And so the themes worked, and the number of days, and people wanted to talk about not just service stand, but now parts is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Body shop, and now reconditioning has come in, and now with EVs, as you know, huge topic. F&I has come in. with a number of their products and working together with the sales and service and parts departments. So F&I is a big part of the F&I of the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
So obviously you've been in the business a long time. You know a lot of people, but you don't know that many people. How do you find everybody? I'm guessing that you have friends who say, "Hey, this person's really smart. You ought to have this person on." Is that how you kind of find and kind of round up that whole lineup of the 4 days?
Exactly. I went initially to people I knew, like Fred Beans was one of our keynote speakers early on. He's been back many times, and his daughter Beth has just did a panel last year, the Women of Beans. Brian Benstock, also a client for many, many years and a good friend. And he came to us in November of 2019 about a new thing called service pickup and delivery and wanted to show us the heat map. And we didn't know in November of 2019 it would be so timely just a few months later. So initially that's what it was. And then it was referrals, people, some who I knew, some who knew people that spoke. But I've also had people come to me randomly. I've had phone calls from people who say, look, I want to speak on the roundtable. And in many cases, Dan, I didn't know who they were. And then I had to research it. And I said, oh, yes, that's somebody we want to have speak. So.
That's great. I know that, the virtual is a great thing. It's easy. You can record it and at least. Do you miss the in-person events at all? I mean, there's a lot of logistic hassles with it, but
of course.
What do you miss about not being in person in the same room with everybody?
Well, everybody wants the human element, right? The connectivity, being able to shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye. Everybody likes that, and to be able to ask questions in person. So we're actually I think we're gonna be able to satisfy some of that niche and keep it retail. We're gonna introduce something new in May. Starting on May 11th. This is the first time we're talking about it. We're going to introduce Fixed Ops Roundtable pop-up events, and we're going to do them around the country at high-profile dealerships, and we're going to interview the staff and the people who make it happen at the dealership. So we've built a morning show set, like a TV set, if you will, and Cara Delane, who has worked with me part-time now for going on almost 3 years. She came aboard full-time March 1st of 2023, and she agreed to be the host of all these pop-ups. And now I'm going to be there as well, so we'll have two hosts, and we're going to get to go in store and meet a lot of people. And the idea is that we want to promote the retail side, of course, Dan, and also promote the events that are coming up right behind it that'll still be virtual.
And it's a nice thing. This will be live streamed, correct?
We're going to live stream it, yeah. So the audience will be mostly online. That's where the action is, right? People watching, as you can't believe some of the people who watch these events. And, we, instead of having a few hundred people in a room, now there's thousands of people who watch this and, untold thousands who watch it later, right? And, it lives on and on and on. So it's a good combination. And we also have a show 2 nights a week on Monday nights and Wednesday nights called After Dark at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. And that's been a big hit. We went from 1 night to 2 nights. Cara Delane also hosts that with me. And we have the podcast as well. And I think we've had 118 episodes so far of the podcast. So that's a pretty long running Fixed Ops podcast. So. And
you sleep when?
Exactly right. So those 18 weeks that it takes, Dan, I do this, it takes, we have a small team. There's maybe 7 of us who are involved, but this is 7 days a week to put all this on. And it's a lot of moving parts, but it's also gratifying and it's a lot of fun. And we've raised some money for charity over the past couple of years. So we've given back, and, we've had our dealers give back and our, people who have been involved on the vendor side as well.
I would imagine if you ever had a time to take your breath for a second and sit back, that you have to be a little bit amazed at how this has grown from, again, that humble beginning in the boardroom, wondering if anybody's going to show up. And now you've got content for 4 days. You say we're going to keep it at 4 days. I wouldn't be surprised if, it'll be 5 days pretty soon. But you have to be kind of, amazed at what you've built.
Yeah, we've had a lot of new relationships that have been built over the last 4 years, Dan, as you know, okay, from doing these types of things. We're just doing a segment now with Northwood University, and they have their auto show coming up later on this year in the fall, and the students are running that. It's going to be their 60th annual auto show, so we're doing a whole segment with them on the auto show. So that's something new that we didn't expect. There was a new technology that came to us a while back, and we did our first Spanish-speaking segment on the Fixed Ops Roundtable on writing up customers in the Spanish language on the service drive and doing the whole checkout process in Spanish. So, I mean, these are things that we may not have done initially, but now it's opened the door to all these, things that we may not initially have considered. And of course, we've always had a high focus on women in retail automotive. You and I have a very good friend in Roger Conant, and Roger is a great friend of the fixed ops community. And Roger, I've been very grateful to him because Roger opened the door and introduced me to people like Liza Borges, whom I didn't know initially. I didn't know Sarah Van Tyne. Roger made those connections, and so Roger consults and he helps put some of these strategic panels on women in retail automotive and also diversity and inclusion. That's been a big part as well.
So last question for you. Like I said, you started out on the front end of the dealerships in sales, but spent a lot of your time in fixed operations and getting to know a lot of folks. Tell me just your impressions of fixed operations and the people who are in it, and just why you've kind of dedicated your life to kind of help me shine a light on what they do.
It's a wonderful time to be in our industry, right? There's been so many unexpected twists and turns, and the people in retail, there are wonderful people in retail, a lot of unsung heroes, right? Who come in every day, they come in early, they get the work done, and they don't get recognized, maybe the way that the beautiful showroom, with the folks who wear the fancier clothes, and those people get the recognition, but a lot of people, as you know, in service and parts have not gotten that historically in the past. So we want to shine a light on that because you've got people who've been in dealerships now for many years, and we're bringing in a new crop of people as well. And we have to be constantly aware. Dan, if you look at the opportunities in retail, somebody can come in with very little to no formal education and learn that part of the business and become anything they want. They can become a manager, a dealer operator. They can go into finance. They can go into logistics. They can go into service, parts, marketing. The sky's the limit. So we want to encourage that, and we want to highlight those stories, as I know you've done as well.
Yeah, it's a fascinating industry filled with a lot of smart and great people, as you and I both know. Look forward to the pop-up event. Look forward to back to the 80s. That's kind of my era. That's my jam. So
you and I, yes,
yeah. That's right. So thanks for your time. Great catching up with you.
Dan, thank you so much for all you do.
Take care, Ted.